Well, to discuss developments in the energy sector, I'm joined now by Rumundaka Wonodi, who is a former managing director at the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company. And he's joined as well by Uket Obong, who is executive secretary of the Power Consumers Advocates of Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on Newsnight tonight. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Now, earlier in the day, the President's Special Advisor on Energy did clarify comments on a proposed tariff. It was reported it would be a 65%, whopping 65% increase in tariff, but she has now clarified. However, some people believe that the government was just testing the waters and their increase on the way for electricity. But the advisor, however, emphasized that there's a need for higher tariffs in the sector to attract private investment. But the question really is, should Nigerians be asked to pay more for electricity at this time or any other time? Let me start with you, to my left here.
Thank you very much. I think just going back to the clarification that the special advisor was trying to make, let's look at that number, 65%,
Yes.
right? What everyone is known in the industry is that even when the Band A came out, you know, NEC did state that with that, 65% will be covered through tariff, and there will still be subsidy for 35%, right? So I think in her clarification, she did mention that there will be targeted subsidies. So you'd expect that some of that 35% will be paid by the consumers. Now, the question is, should they or should they not? That's the question you're asking.
Yes.
And I think the first thing is the service. You know, there has to be service delivery because definitely it's a commodity that needs to be paid for, but at the same time, you know, people should pay and then stop relying on alternatives, right? So if you can get everything you need from the grid, then a fair tariff actually should be cheaper on an aggregate level for you. But if you have to pay that and then you don't see that power, then on aggregate level, you find your energy costs going up. So
yeah, so you're talking about affordability and reliability.
Reliability.
You pay for the service, you should get it.
Exactly.
Okay. Mr. Obonga, almost 90 million Nigerians still don't have access to power, and the over 100 million that have access to power still don't get it constantly. But this debate about tariff and cost-reflective tariffs particularly, should we be having that conversation when the government had only just last year had a targeted increased tariffs with the bands? Do you think this is the conversation we should have now, increasing tariffs again in the electricity sector?
Thank you very much for that question. To me, it is not necessary. I have said so many times in various fora, including this station that I had the privilege of coming here to be interviewed, that the ritual called tariff increase is hypothetical. I said it here, April last year, that what the government has done through NEC is not going to be sustainable. You lifted people that were paying about 63 naira per unit of electricity to 225, and you brought it down to 205, and you now raised it up to 209 naira 50 kobo. And we were told it was only 15%. 15% of electricity consumers that were affected. But today, there is indiscriminate upgrade of customers from various bands into Band A. I give an example. Right in Abuja here. A man ran to us and said, "Sir, this is the bill given to me, an unmetered customer." And when I looked at the bill given by the ADC, 326,000 naira. The units that were used in billing against even the cap of 366 was 1,403, 1403. Multiply that by 209 naira 50 kobo plus 7.5% VAT. he raised up to 300-something thousand. So that prompted me visiting the house. And when I got there, it's a mud house who happened to fall within the feeder. L311 okay. feeder. And when I looked at the appliances, he had a 14-inch television. He has a small fridge. I'm talking of 2 rooms. Mm-hmm. He has a small fridge that is not even used. The children are using it for their books and their shoes. And he has 7 bulbs, 7 light bulbs. So I took the wattage of everything there. And after I calculated, granted that he's giving 24 hours of supply, 247 for 30 days, you pay a little bit, about 17,000 naira.
And that came to 300
and they gave him 300,000 naira. And the man said, no, I don't need it. I cannot afford to feed. Then to the disco, they have billed this customer. And if the customer pays 10,000 naira, you deduct that from what? And they don't push it across. Oh, customers cannot pay. Yeah. So there is insincerity in the sector.
Okay. Let me come back to you, Mr. Rumondaka. Because from what he has described, it does look like there is no standard in the sector. I mean, you just hear, for those that you don't even know which is better, would you rather be an estimated billing customer or a customer who is supposedly on band A and then has to pay for 7 light bulbs and what? TV, 14-inch TV. You were part of the bulk trading company, electricity company. What would you say are the greatest challenges? Because, I mean, we also hear the special advisor today saying that 200 billion naira is spent on electricity subsidies monthly. Of that amount, the wealthiest in Nigeria, 25% of the wealthiest receive the largest share of the 200 billion naira subsidy. It doesn't make lots of economic sense. How are we subsidizing those who are so very rich, yet we're supposed to have a structure of customers? What is going on?
I think that, part of the problem is also the idea that subsidies are targeted around clusters, right? So you can take a low, medium income cluster or neighborhood, and in there you still find very rich, big houses that do consume. So those people ordinarily should have been on band A, but they live in areas where you have band C and they're consuming all this. So you have a lot of that. And then you have some poor people who maybe they're attached to, say, the area of Asokoro. You have some old, native land where you still have indigenous living, and they could have the kind of problem. So if you meter everyone, right, to a large extent, and then have a tariff that is across board, then you can target the people who consume very little and then send them maybe electricity credit. So that's exactly what they're saying, that they want to have targeted. The whole idea of saying that, oh, the whole area of Lube or here is not doing very well, we're going to put them on band C, and then you still have people over there who have transformers and things like that, consuming a lot, so that could lead to that anomaly you see.
But how do we ensure equitable distribution? Because, I mean, every government since God knows when, the history of the country, has been trying to meter Nigeria. And we have still not been able to meter Nigerians. So, I mean, the government is talking about 7,000 rollout this year.
7 million.
7 million, beg your pardon, this year for a number of Nigerians. So we still have that problem, that challenge on the ground. How do we ensure equitable distribution and equitable, subsidization of electricity?
No, so the government is saying that they will roll out 7 million, right? If they do that, that would be fantastic, because that will close the metering gap. Today,
will it?
Well, based on the number of consumers that NEC has, about 13 million, and then the metered is about 6 million, right? So if you do 7 million or 5 million, you could actually close the gap. But we know that once you begin to provide meters, people who are under 1 meter, so like a neighborhood, right, or what you call a yard, then each individual might actually want to opt out for their own individual meter. So you might have the rise to 30 million, and then you have people coming out. But if you can get the meters, then people can actually measure and control how they consume electricity. But the bigger problem, as far as I'm concerned, is that there is not enough power on the grid.
Do you agree with him?
Yes, metering is the key is the solution. Because you said, referring to what you just said, that
Yes.
right from time immemorial, according to you,
Yeah.
government has been talking of metering customers, metering, and it has not been done.
Yeah.
Well, when we went...
Or am I wrong?
You are not wrong, you are
Okay,
not wrong.
okay.
When we went the path of privatization, what were we told under the Jonathan's administration? It was that we are bringing in people with the needed capital to invest. But is that what happened? The MD of Azura Power, I was in a program in Nikon Luxury last year, organized by the Power Correspondents Association of Nigeria. When he came up to ask this question that I've always asked, how much has the discos, the investors in the distribution sector, how much have they really invested in the sector? You look at their PIP carpets, which was given to them, and you now look at the quarterly report of NEC itself, and it tells you for a whole quarter, the discos always made 1% or 1.5% metering out of the carpets that was given to them. They push responsibilities to customers to pay for meters, to buy transformers, even replacement meters. So the meter is a revenue assurance tool for the market. If you meter the customers, and when the customers are, for instance, I have paid for energy. Was it on Tuesday or on Thursday last week? I bought energy for 50,000. I've given ADC 50,000 of my money. I'm waiting for them to give me electricity. So now when it comes to metering too, we are talking of measurement. Do we have the right kind of meters that we should deploy in a service-based tariff? I conducted a study recently to find out the type of meters that are supposed to be used. It's not just what we have here. Advanced metering solutions of infrastructure. We are talking of smart meters. Yeah. Meters that today, where they are operating service-based tariffs, you put a meter there, and the meter is programmed in such a way that when I am given, say, 15 hours of supply instead of 20 hours for band A, the meter resets itself, and I am billed based on what I consume. But all these things are not put in place. We go copy and we come paste and we select what we should implement in this country because of insincerity, because the people who are responsible for this are not sincere with Nigerians. That is why we are in this mess. Electricity is not rocket science. We are talking of a market of over 200 people.
Yes,
you
but
said the World Bank said 90 million Nigerians
do not have access
to it, which is...
Mr. Obong, I hear you. There are lots of challenges. Unfortunately, there's not enough time on the news for us to discuss all of these challenges. But I want to ask, with these challenges that we have, I wonder who is failing the Nigerian consumer? Or are they even part of the problem, Mr. Rumondaka? So the government, where's the weakest link here? If you are paying 200 billion naira monthly for subsidies by the federal government, and the wealthiest 25% are the beneficiaries of this, if the discos, according to Mr. Obonga, are not providing the meters that they're supposed to supply. There are also questions about Nigerian consumers who also bypass. There are lots of challenges in this, in the entire value chain. But I want to ask you, as someone who was in the sector, some aspect of it, where is the weakest link? And where can we begin to plug to ensure that we have reliable and accessible? I don't know if affordable joins that list, because some people will say power is expensive anywhere in the world. How do we ensure that, we leave this phase of discussing electricity tariffs and supply or lack of it every time?
Something that had stayed static since we started this reform, to a large extent, is actually the amount of power that is going through the system, right? You have to do something to get more power, right? The whole idea of reform is to have power get to homes and businesses, right? So whether it's the transmission network or the distribution network, that is the first thing that we actually have to see go through. And as a matter of fact...
Are you saying we should rejig the privatization?
No. I'm not saying that you should jettison the privatization. I'm saying that you should strengthen it, right? So there is a program which is actually dear to my heart. The FGN Power initiative that seeks to grow the power
Agreed.
the grid, expand it, get to 7,000, get to 9,000. That is one thing that we need to do, right? Because each time we wait and we're looking at plugging the deficit in the sector, what happens is that you're not increasing the generation. Maybe people are bothered that if you increase it, you have a bigger pot of subsidy to deal with. What happens is that the grid gets commercially weaker, because what happens is that the most credible consumers leave the grid. Right? So earlier on this year, we heard that about 247 industrials have left the grid.
Mini
right?
grids, yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to mini grids, they're looking for alternatives that are not necessarily cheaper, but just more reliable for them, right? So each time, as we wait the time and we do not put power in the system, the most credible consumers leave the grid. People in band A, if you promise them that power and it's not coming at that price, they go for solar, right? So things are static, technology is shifting. There's availability of CNG, there are solar panels, right? So your strongest consumers leave the grid, and then the grid continues to be weaker and weaker, and you need to continue to subsidize it. So how do you bridge this? You have to push power through the system and keep your reliable people satisfied, and then they can pay, and everybody, has a pathway to reliability of some sort.
Great. I do apologize, but in 30 seconds, Mr. Uket Obong, your final words on this conversation.
For me, the federal government, this emphasis of subsidy. Federal government is paying 200 billion as subsidy every month. Is it true? I know that there are shortfalls, revenue shortfalls. But when we look at the collection rates, the collections of the discos, what the discos are taking in, what they are collecting. For instance, as we earn, their accounts have been escrowed. But they have other means of pushing revenues that even the governor, the commission is not aware of. And nothing is being done to make sure that all collections come to the same basket and to be shared by every person. There are a lot of illegalities that are going on, which the commission is unable to checkmate and whip everybody in line.
When you say the commission, the neck.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Mr. Rumondaka Wonodi, a former managing director at the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company. Thank you so much for being on Newsnight.
Thank you very much.
As well as Mr. Uket Obonga, Executive Secretary of the Power Consumers Advocates of Nigeria. Thank you.